Thanks for joining us. So just to introduce myself, I'm Liam Stoker, Head of Market Insights at Reuters Professional. So whereas probably 80% of my role is very much looking at custom research and kind of really activating and looking at how AI is transforming certain industries, I also have a bit of a side gig within Reuters as a lead for one of our AI transformation projects. So looking at new roles, new skills, new structures, very much in my pattern of work. So obviously, a lot of organizations are kind of feeling this pressure, having to be seen to do AI. Obviously, we can see that just cursing over the kind of quarterly financial performance. You see it mentioned frequently. So really looking forward to getting into the meat of this discussion. And having spoken to my three esteemed co-panelists in the weeks leading up to this, I know we've got lots of really excellent detail to share. So I think if we could just start with a round of introductions, start with yourself, Tatyana.
Yeah, thank you. Tatyana Kibrik, I'm currently CTO for Voya Investment Management. We are a mid-sized investment management firm, manage about $400 billion in asset under management. Prior to that, I was a CTO of Wells Fargo Asset Management, and I go back and forth between the buy side and the sell side, which means capital markets and investment management companies. My current remit is responsible for technology strategy, execution, data, and AI.
Hello, everyone. My name is Arsalan. I'm the Chief Security Officer at Graphiant. We are a network and connectivity infrastructure company based out of San Jose, California. So essentially, what we build is your data may exist in a lot of different locations, maybe multiple cloud providers, various different AI clouds. How do you move all of that data around securely, privately, have visibility into what you're doing, as well as have governance rules around it, and how you're connecting your users to it? That is a very glorified way of saying we are plumbers. You all need pipes to move things from one place to another. We do that dirty work. My focus itself is mostly on the security and compliance aspect within the company, as well as security and compliance for the product that we offer, because we do work in regular enterprise space, as well as working with governments around their sovereign requirements, because infrastructure tends to be a pretty big national security asset. Looking forward to the discussion.
Hello, everyone. I'm Prabin Kanel. I'm Chief Information and Digital Officer at Beacon Communities LLC, based out of Boston, Massachusetts. We are in affordable housing business. We have a portfolio of close to 150 communities across multiple states. Majority of our properties and communities are in state of Massachusetts, New York, Connecticut, and a lot in Pennsylvania as well. We operate, own, and develop multifamily housing. My team oversees the infrastructure at all those communities, as well as the enterprise application, business intelligence, cybersecurity, and digital transformation, sort of focus on the people and the process side of it.
Fantastic. I want to really pick on the people first, because I think looking at what we've been asked to kind of discuss today, that new roles initial kind of thought starter is really important. So one of the things that I've seen frequently come up, and this I know has been mentioned throughout the conference already, but thinking about the way that the workforce is transforming and evolving, are there any particular new roles that didn't exist 2 years ago that now you see as really fundamental to a successful AI strategy?
I'm happy to start. I think it's hard to find a role that is not going to be or is getting impacted by AI. Maybe just few known ones. Prompt engineering. If you take a look at the hiring industry, or if you take a look at the HR, it's quite known then as technologists or as others, we are going to be a manager of agents. So HR is getting trained on the very, very different way they'll be managing the workforce. If you take a look at the governance, and there are so many different governance bodies that we have in the companies, you have new roles, right? You have AI governance in general is new. How you govern AI, how is it different from data governance? It's actually quite different. There are some similarities. You have the privacy officers that are now have to be trained in AI, the legal teams that are now needs to be trained in AI, the engineers, the developers, really different skill set that they require. The hiring, how you're going to hire new people in the age of AI. I think it's probably hard to find a role or area which hasn't been touched by AI.
Yeah, that very much extends to compliance as well, right? Writing
Very
whatever
much so.
your internal policies may be, having to stay ahead of the technical people who are building this stuff out and being able to give them guidance makes a really big difference. And like Tatyana said, right, everything is going to get impacted. Prompt engineering is almost like a hyphenated term that needs to go with everyone's title. You are a marketing prompt engineer. You are a sales prompt engineer. So every role across the company is going to get impacted. It is happening. It's just a question of how much change do we see, but it's the proliferation of AI across the entire organizations.
I think in addition to everything that has been said, our industry sort of has its own challenges, and we have our own resource constraint that we have, and we're dealing with different type of demographics in our workforce. So the role that, I wish I could have a role defined, but I think it's all about for us, what's been happening is upskilling our workforce. That's been extremely important to us, because your maintenance tech are gonna use AI differently than your property manager or your resident services coordinator or somebody sitting at the back office like your engineers or your accountants, right? So it's a different set of skills that you have to train them on and connect that to their own use cases. And so it's been a little different for us, and we have our own sort of challenges to deal with it.
And I think just touching on some of the points there, obviously AI is going to become a fundamental aspect of everyone's role. To what extent are there going to be new roles created as part of that transformation, and to what extent is this just an essential upskilling initiative for every existing role?
I think at Beacon, what we've decided to do is sort of mix of both. I think there are new roles that we will be hiring, but at the same time, I think it's all about sort of providing these tools and training to be able to upskill the workforce itself. So it's a mix of both. I have a resource constraint. I wish I had millions of dollars to invest on all these initiatives, but I don't, right? So the way we're trying to innovate within Beacon is sort of like centralized governance, but decentralized innovation, and to rely on ideating and tapping into those use cases, how it could impact the business user, is how we are sort of solving this.
Fantastic. I want to touch on something there, particularly around the kind of upskilling or reskilling, because it's a really fundamental part of this. And I know a lot of the research that me and my team have conducted around AI transformations that are becoming embedded within organizations really are starting to center on this, the people aspect, the change management aspect of it, because the technology will get you so far, you need to upskill and bring people along that journey as well. So I guess one of the real questions here is, how are you reskilling, upskilling those kind of like non-technical teams or employees to get up to that level where AI becomes a fundamental part of their role?
I'm happy to start. Well, we have a large number of programs. I think changing the culture is probably the hardest thing. So we have AI literacy. We are a Microsoft shop, so we have training, we have certifications, we have AI champions, we have champions that are training champions. We have kind of community of practice type of training. We have lots of show and tell, where every team, a couple of times a month, they come in and they show what they have done. So we're really hoping to create a healthy competition in the teams, and we see it's happening. Now, if you talk about, there are different roles. How to do that? I think going forward, there'll be probably two types of teams, right? Or two types, I can talk about developers. If you are a mediocre developer, with the help of AI, you're still going to be a mediocre developer. You're probably going to write mediocre code faster, but you're still going to be a mediocre developer. If you are an exceptional technologist, with the help of AI, you're becoming a company. You're becoming a company of one. And there are multiple examples where those companies of one are really getting purchased or they're going public. So the creation of AI tools is really, you got to think about who are they helping, right? If they're helping amazing technologists, it's an amazing power. If you have a mediocre developers, it's a bit of a challenge. Again, they're going to be faster. So I think there'll be two types of teams. There'll be teams of this amazing professionals who will demand a premium, and there'll be everybody else. And everybody else is, I think it's going to be interesting to see what happens. But it's going to be a different, brave new world.
Yeah. And the way we've been approaching it internally as well is making sure people actually start using AI rather than just telling them about it. So, yes, you want them to present to everyone what they've done. That encourages people to look at what someone else has been able to solve, and that motivates them themselves. And one push that we do is, at least at every manager level, you need to work with your team to identify their pain points. What is the problem they want to get solved, rather than just telling them you need to use AI? Come to me with a problem that you are trying to solve that you would be very happy if it went away tomorrow. I will help you figure out how you can use AI to solve that problem. I am not looking to force this tool down your throat. I want this to make your experience better. And that motivation, it has to come from that manager level itself, because I'm too far away to understand the day-to-day problem you're having. Your manager is very close. They have to encourage you to identify those problems. And then we have a team that helps you with how would you go about solving this. So that itself has been a fairly interesting and fairly effective method for us, because then people get motivated to come to you with their problems, as opposed to us going, here, AI, use it.
In addition, with everything that has been said, I think one thing that we're trying differently at Beacon is, yeah, you need governance, but it's for us to enable you to use AI. Encourage them rather than saying we are here to police you, right, in terms of how you're using it. I think we're taking a different approach to that, and we're really encouraging and motivating and investing on early adopters and sort of those disruptors that really want to challenge us. So instead of, to your point, IT forcing something on you, you come up with the use cases in terms of what you're trying to solve, and that's been very interesting. And the use cases are really, really different, right? Your maintenance tech at a building is not going to be using building agentic AI workflow. Like, that's not going to happen. I was at an event during the Q&A, and I was sharing with the panelists earlier. This maintenance tech asked me this question, like, is AI coming for my job? How should I be using it? And I said, no, it's not, but this is how you could use it. Pick up your phone, fire up the chat GPT, take a picture of that boiler, and say, how do I fix this? Real world example. And he was like, oh, that's exactly how I want to use it going forward, right? I think connecting them to their own pain points, it's been very powerful for us.
One side point there that I want to touch on, that you kind of initiated there, of people being concerned around that AI is coming for their job, and there's some natural reluctance to use it, integrate it. Have you experienced that kind of resistance still, or is it, do you get the impression that might be beginning to dissipate a bit?
Yes, and I think over time, I think we've sort of overcome that, because the message has always been the same from every single senior leadership, is AI is not coming for your job. What's coming for your job is the humans who know, understand, and use AI skills, right? They have the AI skills, they are coming for your job. So I think as the messaging has been true across all the senior leadership team, as we've been interacted with the mid-management, and that's been the message that has gone out there, I think now they are excited to use it in terms to solve their day-to-day business challenges. And that's been interesting. But yes, absolutely. Just 6 months ago, that event that I was telling you about, that was exactly the fear they had. And we're not sort of transforming with fear. What we're trying to do is say, hey, here, we are here to help you.
I think it's a challenge in some places, and I think that I really liked what Citibank did, Citigroup. They have a slogan: "Do the job you love, not the boring stuff." And I think that's a fantastic way. That's a fantastic way to work with the community, with the company, to make sure that they're not afraid of it, to make sure that they understand that this tool, again, this is a tool. We're not here to replace humans. We are here to give them tools so they can be more productive and really more enjoy their job. So.
And I think that fear part is the big deal, right? People may be afraid of it because they don't entirely know it. They haven't used it. Like, I've dealt with two different types of people. One whose immediate reaction is, well, AI can't do my job. Those aren't just technical, non-technical people. I've heard this from salespeople. I've heard this from coders. Software developers will tell you, you know what? It can't write code as well as I can. On the other end of the spectrum, you will see people who, once they've used it, realize, oh, this is going to make me more capable. So someone who was writing content for us, putting together our marketing content, first thing you would imagine is, oh, AI is going to take that job. But when they used it, their experience was very different. They said, now I get to think about the message I want to put forward. It's not necessarily about how I'm communicating it. That part is handled. I get to play with so many different drafts, run it across so many more people to get feedback. It's when people get to experience it themselves, that fear is what breaks. And that's when you start to see it click for people. Oh, I can do so much more with this compared to what I thought it was.
Fantastic. I want to take a step back, and I think we've spoken for 15, 20 minutes about the individual, but what about the actual organizational level? So if we, I know something that you spoke about, Prabin, around the kind of fostering AI innovation within your business. Is there a particular operating model, or have you had to make adjustments or tweaks to how your business operates to really foster that innovative streak?
I think I touched on it a little bit. I think it's not about AI as a fear that's coming after your job. Like, that's not the way you want to approach it, right? So the way, I think what's been interesting for us is centralized governance, but in the distributed innovation. I think hearing that from a chief information digital officer may not be what you want to hear, but because everybody has this fear of like having a set of IT out there, right? For us, what's been fantastic in terms of that is now we have all these early adopters. They want to be creating innovative solution to be solved it, and they want to talk to us and work with us to figure out from the business continuity perspective how we can sustain and maintain that product going forward. That's been fantastic in terms of the changes, because they're not building in their own cubicle and just using it. And it becomes our problem, IT's problem, from the business continuity perspective if we're not able to maintain that. So we've taken a different approach, and it has to do with the resource constraint that we have too. I wish I could have a shiny AI team sitting in my team, but that's not the case, right? So I have to solve it differently, and that's how I've tried to solve it at Beacon.
Mm-hmm. I like that description a lot of centralized governance, whereas innovation is distributed, because just the idea of people who are closest to the problem should solve the problem, but you don't want them to have to learn how AI agent workflows are set up. You want to give them the tool, so you have somebody who's centrally putting guardrails, helping you be able to produce things quickly, but at the end of the day, it's the people who are actually solving the problems. That's the people who you want to be able to innovate. So I really like that description.
Yep. We have very talented teams in the Voya investment management, and we really would like to make sure that our teams are working on the most challenging problems. Obviously, in every organization, there are problems that are probably a little bit more repetitive, probably a little bit more manual versus other problems. So with AI, we are able to, and we have several actually use cases. We were creating AI assistant, whether it's AI assistant for our research analysts, so they can focus on the most difficult problems, or it's an AI assistant for our alternatives platform, or it's an AI assistant for our sales teams. So all of that information is making our teams more efficient, more productive, and they can focus on the most difficult problems for our clients.
Excellent. I want to touch on, I can see a question that's come in, and I think it's a kind of a natural successor, a segue for where this discussion is heading. But I think we've spoken a lot about building the team, but in terms of monitoring or kind of keeping a watchful eye on AI integration and where things are, how should organizations start to be thinking around measuring AI success? Because this could take on it could be a financial decision, it could be a people change issue. What's really pivotal to getting that measurement of success right?
So my view is going to come from a very IT perspective, which is IT is always the cost center. So we are always responsible for building the infrastructure, which can be difficult to quantify, but is fundamental. For example, should we give everyone laptops at the company? If you're going to look purely at ROI, it might not make sense, but what it enables is what you focus on. So as we look at metrics, the question isn't what is AI giving me? The question is, you already have your metrics established. How is AI helping you achieve those metrics? Is it allowing you to be more efficient? Am I finding more leads for my sales team? Are they closing faster? Am I producing more features in a shorter amount of time? Am I deploying infrastructure more quickly with fewer problems? Those metrics, they are no different with or without AI. Just a question of how much more can you get out of your team? So we look at AI as the tool. Just AI is a cost center, no question about it. What does it enable across the rest of your organization? That's what you start measuring and monitoring. And don't look at token usage. That does not help anyone except for the people selling you tokens. Look at business outcomes. That's what we focus on.
Yeah, I think it's a great point. I mean, if this doesn't make to the CFO dashboard, it's probably not a good value. So I think the way to measure is AI, but the value it creates, the productivity it creates. I've seen stats, we have 80% using adoption rate. I mean, that's a nice stat. I don't think this is the way to measure it, but maybe the first step. Maybe maybe it's a stat to measure how learning modules have been working for the rest of the company, but it's not the final outcome of AI. So the final outcome of AI is like, are we making, what is the value add? What is the value add to the bottom line? Are we making our teams more productive?
The way at Beacon we are approaching it is sort of, has the behavior changed with the introduction of AI, right? I think the example I gave you earlier about that maintenance tech, if he's going to go back, if I were to talk to him in 6 months or so and he's still flipping through the manual to fix the boiler, then the change didn't happen, right? I think it's the behavioral change that we're looking at it. I think the outcome that we want to see is somebody using these tools on a day-to-day basis to do their day-to-day job. Anything that's one of the things that we talk about it, especially our community managers, is to spend more time with the residents who are living in your communities itself. That's, for us, you building that relationship is more important than you flipping through a piece of paper or writing, filling out a form. If we're seeing more of that, that means we've done our job. To take away something that you used to do it on a different way is now you're building that relationship. That's really extremely important for us.
Yeah, I think it's a great point. I mean, in our company, we're client obsessed, so everything we do has to benefit our clients, and that's how we measure the outcome.
I was going to ask, are there any potentially misleading metrics or anything that people should steer away from monitoring? But I think we've already had that in terms of the token consumption, the kind of adoption rates from a holistic level. Is there anything else that people need to be watchful of?
I think token consumption is an important matrix because you really want to make sure that you measure the cost, right? And you can control the cost, but it's not the measure of how efficient you are with AI.
Fantastic. Are there any particular outcomes that you've seen really resonate with the senior organizational leadership, whether that is the C-suite or the executive board? What language can we be speaking to really convey the value here?
I think we speak in terms of the impact that we're making to our clients. That is the most, this is what we're here for as an investment company. We're here to serve our clients. And that's how we measure the impact. If our teams have more time to spend with their clients, this is the measurable impact.
For us, it tends to be a lot around, are you running lean? Are you able to take on more things? If you were to introduce AI, can you produce more with the same team? But with a big focus on, you shouldn't burn people out just because there's a lot more work coming. Because AI is going to extend you, but that can also lead to potential burnout. So still accounting for the same kind of concerns, but are you able to double your output? Are you able to triple your output? What impact is it having? That's what we tend to measure.
I think to add to everything that has already been there, I think the other thing that we're trying to sort of think about, like, I think it's a term that's being used, return on people now, sort of like your productivity and the engagement side of it. I think one of the things that Beacon is heavily focused on is employee engagement. See where we're going to score more with some of the introduction of this automation that we build within our organization, is that having an impact within our employee to be more engaged. I think that's been fantastic in terms of wanting to see that from the senior leadership perspective, from the board perspective. If our goal is to have very engaged employees, which in turn will produce more, that means we need to be thinking about all of this in terms of automating some of those workflows.
I know that we have touched on this, well, we've mentioned it a few times, the issue around governance, and I know that we've spoken about central government's distributed innovation, but given how critical the governance and the risk management around some of these AI integrations are, what do these mechanisms now have to look like in practice now that this transformation is entirely underway?
I think it's more important than ever, right? And I think it's an art, right? How do you make sure that you innovate at speed and at the same time have a very controlled and risk-measured environment? So in Voya Investment Management, we make sure that we have a risk-based approach. Obviously, you got to look at, do you have a PII data? Are you using widely available LLMs? Are there any ethical concerns with the models that you're using? So there are different areas that we look at, and we really define a risk-based approach.
So for us, there tend to be three things we do for anyone looking to launch a new agent. The first one is your agent registered with HR? Does it have a name? Because whatever access you give it is the agent's access, and you are its manager. So you need to make sure that whatever you're providing it is something we can trace. The second piece is, what data are you accessing? If it's not PII, if it's not something that's really fundamental and needs to be private, we want to make it easy for you to access that data. If it's PII, let's stay away from it. All other data, you have a good use case, go ahead and use it. And the third part, which plays a little bit to our strengths because we are a network infrastructure company, is shadow AI is going to be a big problem, and you can't trust people, or more so, it's difficult to ensure that everyone notifies you of what they have running in the environment. So we basically at the pipe level, look at everything that's going on just to monitor, is there something happening that we are not aware of? Doesn't even have to be so granular as to tell me what they're doing. Is there an agent that exists in my environment that I don't know about? So as long as those three things are done, we feel fairly comfortable with the level of risk that's associated with it. And again, we have central governance. We want people to go out and innovate and then try things out, see what they come up with.
I think what's been interesting at our organization is also sort of like training at their own level, right? We do have PII information. We have all this resident information of all the individuals living in our communities. It's our duty to protect them. And it's not only on me or my team to protect them, it has to fall onto those property manager, community manager to protect them as well. With the introduction of AI, what has happened is they want to move so fast, they don't think about it as they have thought about it in the past. So what we've started doing was simplifying the whole thing, saying FAQ, here are the things that you can do, and here are the things that we absolutely don't want you to do, is to upload an Excel spreadsheet of all your residents and their addresses and everything else up to a ChatGPT and try to figure out a use case for it. That's not what we are. So it's been a very interesting training in that sense, is to just give them a simple language rather than give them a 6-page policy saying this is our AI acceptable use policy. What we've decided to do was simplify them in 2-pagers saying this is when you want to use it and these are the things you should absolutely stay away from it. And that has seen quite a change in our organization by just doing that.
Has the role of human oversight, or perhaps the position of oversight, changed much, and where does this now matter most?
Happy to go. We are an investment management company. We're very conservative by nature. Our clients, again, we are client obsessed. We always had a human in the loop, and that does not change. So AI is a tool to make our people faster, productive, more impactful, but there's always, always, always human in the loop.
I think oversight's the one area where there's more and more humans involved compared to before, because the way we talk about our AI agents is they're interns. They may be really smart, they may have all the understanding of your problems, but what they lack is context. They don't know that if they go and do one thing in your production environment, what impact it's going to have on which industry. That context is something that it only learns over time. You wouldn't basically give an intern the keys to your production environment without oversight. Oversight is where humans are much more important now as we start to deploy more and more agents.
I think the other thing that's really important is the people who are building, individuals who are building these agents have to be the owner of it too. They have to own the outcomes, and the subject matter expert needs to validate those, right? I think that's extremely important because it cannot be like, oh, IT, right? You cannot do that. And I think it's been interesting, I think for us, not only getting solving that business challenge that you may have. I mean, after all, we are housing people. So if it impacts people, you have to be in there looking at the decision that has been perhaps recommended for this person to move into your house. You have to be looking at it. You cannot just rely on the technology to be able to do that. So that's been another thing that we've been trying to train them and help them understand what it means in terms of the risk you are taking, and if it impacts people, you are definitely looking at it and you're owning that decision at that point.
I want to touch on something that I know that we briefly skirted over, and particularly under the lens of AI being a magnifying glass or an amplifier now for turning those high-performing people, those talents within the business, and really amplifying what they're capable of. How much, or to what extent, do you feel that AI has really exacerbated this thirst for new talent, and particularly within skills and that are relevant for AI, and where do you think that market is heading?
So we are a company based in San Jose, California, and still by all standards a startup, which means this problem has been there for decades, where there's always someone willing to pay a lot more money than what you can offer. Additionally, with AI, that's just gone bonkers. Some of those tech companies are throwing $10+ million at an individual. There is no way majority companies can compete. Our focus tends to be generally what startups have done in the past. Find people who are motivated to solve that problem. Yes, it's a job. Everyone should get paid well to do what they love. But if they love doing that work, then you empower them. Because if they can work on it, if they have the ability to have real impact and make a change, that's the area where you motivate them. Because there's no other way to compete with some of those big companies that just pay way much more than you can. So for us, it just boils down to those two things. Do they have agency, and do they get to work on interesting things? Cutting out bureaucracy, that's how we try and motivate them.
And imagine that being in Boston. You're competing against biotech and tech companies and all that. And what industry do you work at is affordable housing, resource constraint, right? So I think our approach has always been sort of look at the mission itself. You are coming here to help people be housed and find a home so that wherever they are in their journey is extremely important to us. So the way I've been trying to recruit or retain all our talent, and I've got a person here who shouldn't be hearing this, is through the mission, right? The mission is so important for us because at the end of the day, these are the vulnerable population who are coming into our home, our communities, and calling it a home so that they can go to the next level in their journey.
Do you get the impression that people are now more interested in mission and the role rather than solely focused on compensation?
I've seen increase of that, absolutely, increase of that. I don't think everybody's just running after the money or the company, the next big salary they're gonna get. I don't think that's the case. I think there's like a mix of individuals, especially the demographic that's coming into the workforce. They're very mission driven in terms of they'll ask us questions about what are we doing on climate change, like all these things. That's because after all, we've got all these 50 communities or so that are consuming a lot of energy out there. So there is like other things in terms of what questions being asked in terms of where we stand as an organization, and mission is definitely a critical questions that I get all the time.
So my answer is going to be a little different because again, in the Valley, it's always been about mission. Missions may change over time, but it's always been generally a culture of people being driven by it. So for us, we've seen kind of similar mindsets and approaches as we have in the past.
Yeah, I would agree. Mission is very important. Voya has been, for the past 10 years, has been on the top list of the companies people love working for. Culture is important. We are a hybrid environment. We have a strong mission. We're fighting for everybody's right for a good financial future. I work in many companies. This is by far the best. And we see that employees do want to work for a company with a good culture and a good mission.
I think it's a really natural segue again. This seems to, the conversation seems to be placing quite a lot of importance on that culture and ensuring that that culture is right. So what are some of the hardest cultural shifts that need to happen within an organization today to enable that AI-enabled future of 1 year, 2 year, 3 years down the line?
Well, I can probably start, right? I think the AI innovation, yes, AI is a great tool, but you got to apply that tool to reimagine your workflows. So really taking a look at something that perhaps people have done for years and reimagined different workflows and how it can be done better. I think we are hiring differently, or at least, I'm trying to hire differently, right? Take a look at you hire people with growth mindset, people that can teach themselves, people that can learn themselves. I think that's very important. If you take a look at the development communities, technology community, we are developing very differently, right? It's a completely, right now you kind of write instructions first, and when you give it to GitHub Copilot or any other Copilot, and you can generate better code because you start from a different place. So a lot of things changed.
I think one of the issues that people deal with is AI is being sold as magic, where you use AI and stuff will happen. When it comes to the practical realities of things, that's not necessarily how it works. But if your expectations are so high, and I think somebody in one of the panels earlier mentioned something along these lines as well, of don't expect it to be 100% perfect. What you start is smaller iterative processes. What is the one thing in your day-to-day work that you hate doing? Let's give that to AI. That kind of mindset of it doesn't have to be at a fundamental, the entire company's changing overnight. Start picking up smaller chunks, making those changes, but realizing that yes, this is a powerful technology with a really big future, but you start small. That mindset change often can be difficult, but that's the thing to keep pushing for.
I think that's extremely important to it's moving at a pace I can hardly keep track of it anymore, right? I think it's moved so fast. And one of the things that I'm trying to sort of help my team understand, you have to adapt, you have to learn, because there are new things that's going to happen in 2 weeks, a month, and new things that's going to come up. So we have to, granted that we're not going to create one of those innovative product out there like a tech company may do, but we have to figure out how to use technology to streamline our own processes as well as work with the businesses to solve their own business challenges. So it's adaptability, growth mindset, agility, all that is extremely important at Beacon.
I'm conscious of time. We've covered quite a lot of ground for this, and I think there's obviously an entire other conference that we could probably run just on this session alone, I think. But if we want to distill everything, it'd be great to get what would be your top tip for someone in the audience looking at this and thinking, where do I even start? What's the number one thing that you think people should be leaving this session with?
Just start.
I think that perfectly encapsulates what you need to do. Experience it. Because until you experience it, everything you hear is either going to be hype because someone's pushing up valuation, or it's doom and gloom because those are the only two stories you're going to hear. Go through it, experience it before you tell anyone else to experience it, and that's going to drive your next steps. It'll become very clear to you what you need to do after that.
I think that's it. Don't wait for somebody to come and tell you how to use it. Just go ahead and use it. You'll learn from it, and then you'll apply it to your own business case.
Fantastic. Well, I think we've got uniformity there. Just go out and use it and start. Thank you very much for your attention, and thank you again to Tatyana, to Arsalan, and to Prabin. Excellent panel. If you could join me in thanking them under the usual way.